Let's go. Look, we're back one more time, man. Like, I'm excited to jump into each and every one of these words that's going to help you see things from a new light, right? I'm here to give you my pie, my piece of the pie, my perspective, my insight and imagination, and help you unload, unpack, unlock, unveil every attribute and ability that you already possess for success. So, look, I have the best principle for you today. And if you haven't heard of this principle, and you may not have heard of it because I'm the one that built it out, but if you haven't heard of this principle, it's going to be very valuable for you today. Look, this principle comes out the 28 Power Keys to Success. I want you to get this book. I want you to build yourself up, your perspective, your insight and imagination, and continue to see your dreams, your goals, and aspirations face to face. Let's go. So I want to jump into this default principle. So in my book, and I communicate this in person, like, everybody's not going to agree with me on this. But regardless if you agree or not, if you utilize this principle, it's going to take you to the next level, right? It's going to allow you to access rooms. It's going to allow you to be more effective, more productive. It's going to make things a little bit more lean for you, meaning that you can move more fluidly and you don't have to deal with all the noise. You don't have to deal with all the noise because there's a lot of noise out there. And by default, we collect a lot of that noise, right? So it's time to really put this principle in place and move in a way that's going to propel us to our dreams, our goals, and our aspirations, that's going to support those same dreams, goals, and aspirations and help us be more effective. So let's jump into this principle. The principle is in this book, The 28 Power Keys to Success. And I'm going to talk about this really quick because I think it's very important for us to understand. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when I talk about this principle. Again, I'm going to tell you what the principle is, and then we're going to jump into the conversation, the communication, the discussion, the verbalization of whatever. We just going to have fun with it, right? So when I take a look at the book, it says the basis of the default principle is if you do not say yes, by default, you said no. And immediately, like immediately everybody blockers go up. Immediately, like, nah, that's not right. All the other stuff. I'm finna get into this, and I'm gonna convey it in a way where you understand it very strategically. Okay. Look, this is one thing you have to know. If I do not say yes, then I'm saying no. Okay. If I'm not saying yes, then I'm saying no. And I sat down and I talked to my wife about this because before I come and explain a lot of this information in each chapter, I'm reading these chapters again. And the information that I've gained over the time since this book has been published, it's also bringing me new perspective, insight, and imagination, allowing me to access more ways to communicate and be more effective in conveying this message to the audience. And so I was talking to my wife about this recently, and she asks a lot of great questions, really be stretching my thought process. And so when I communicated, we was talking about, what if somebody said, I don't know? And I'm like, if it's a yes or no question, we know. We know. And I believe that a lot of people want to say, nah, we don't always know, and we don't always have to say yes and things like that. So I want to give you a couple demonstrations. One demonstration is my wife was talking about, hey, what if our daughter come and say, hey, listen, I want to go outside and play. Can I go and play? And my wife, she's like, hey, she needs to go outside and play, but I'm a little tired right now and things like that. And not right now. It's not a real definitive communication. It kind of caps things off, but it's not a yes and it's not a no. And I tell you that your yes and your no are very clear and concise, and it helps people. It empowers people to move forward and continue to move and make decisions that's going to help them in the current moment, right? And so when she said this about our daughter, I was like, well, that if you said maybe later or something like that, the baby is in the space with an expectation that there's a possibility. And so if there's an expectation of a possibility and it never happens, then there's a disappointment that settles in, right? And so we don't want that. We want to give people clear. We want to give people clarity. We want to be clear. We want to be concise. We want to understand that, hey, listen, people got feelings, and sometimes the answer may not be in their favor. but it allows them to adjust and reset quick enough to be productive in the current situation, right? In their current moments. And so, look, this is really big because another question came up, and I was like, I'm talking about yes and no questions. I'm talking about yes and no's, and I have to really take out all these other different variables that everybody can like conjure up, because you can come up with a whole lot of questions that are not yes and no, right? But there's an answer to yes and no questions, and look, in a sense, you're obligated to answer that. Like whether you say yes or no, you're virtually obligated to answer this question when it's presented to you. And it's a really courteous thing, I would say. And then I also think it's something that is good for you internally. So externally, internally, it's a win-win when we're understanding how to utilize this default principle, right? And understanding what yes is and understanding what no is and how it affects us and how it affects others. So let's jump into it really quick, right? Let's jump into it. So I'm gonna give you the first definition, right? The first definition of default. The first definition of default is this. It says failure to fulfill an obligation. Like, so I just mentioned that, hey man, you're obligated to answer. And now the default principle we're talking about is the principle between yes and no. So if you do not say yes, you said no, right? If you say yes, then you've entered yourself into a contract. But a lot of people really want to fight the yes. A lot of times they want to straddle the fence. A lot of times they don't want to say yes because it implies like literally contract. You know what I'm saying? Like I have an obligation, I have a commitment. And a lot of people don't want to say yes, but your yes is a definitive communication that allows individuals to be able to move soon as you confirm, soon as that confirmation comes across. I know what my next steps are. Like it's a courtesy to answer somebody yes or no. Like it's a courtesy to be clear and concise. It's one of the most clear-cut things that you can do. I'm reminded of the scripture. It says, let your yes be yes and your no be no, right? Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And, sometimes when I talk about the default principle, people look at me and be like, well, if I don't say anything, then it doesn't mean that I said no. I said, yes, it does. Like the default principle is something that you have to apply to yourself. And it's a tool necessary for us to utilize if we want to maintain our productivity. Yeah, it's a courtesy for us to say yes and us to say no when there's a yes or no question, to give people clear understanding of what direction we're going, whether we're committed, whether we're in agreement, or whether or not we're going along with whatever it is that is being offered. But this is the thing. Whenever you're implementing the default method, the default principle in your life, right? Whenever you're implementing that into your life, it is extremely effective for you. So let's look at it from that standpoint right now, okay? So me, I use I use the analogy or I use the imagery of this. Like say, hey, I'm a man and there's a young lady I want to marry. I go out and I get on one knee and I have the ring and I ask her to marry me, and she stands there and say nothing, right? She says nothing. And it doesn't matter what emotion she shows on her face, doesn't matter, what kind of body language she gives me. I ask her, will she marry me? She gives me no answer. And then I ask her again and she gives me no answer. And at some point I have to stand up and I have to figure out, where am I at in this relationship, right? I got to figure out what is really going on, because I didn't get a yes and I didn't get a no, and I got to figure it out. And so one of the biggest problems with that is that I have to figure it out, meaning that I have to interpret whatever facial expressions, I have to interpret whatever body language, I have to interpret how my feelings and emotions accepted that information or lack of information. I have to interpret that. And it's an unpleasant thing because I'm having to make an internal adjustment. But then if I apply the default method, right? If I do not get a yes, it is a no, then I came without a yes and I'm leaving without a yes. And I understand that, hey, look, this is not a commitment, right? The commitment, the contract didn't happen. There wasn't a yes. I have to, now I can adjust myself in the proper way. And a lot of people want to throw a lot of different variables in, like, what if, she wasn't ready? And what if this and that? I'm like, listen, man, it's a yes or no question. And we know in our hearts right now whether or not this person is someone we can marry. And look, if somebody asks me the question, will you marry me? That's a proposal. And if you say yes and you take the ring, then you still have time to schedule the dates and all that other stuff. So if you don't believe that you will marry that person when they ask you, will you marry me? Then it's a no. It's a no. And he came without a yes and he left without a yes. If I come and I leave without a yes, I gotta know. I gotta know. That's the default principle. And it allows me to operate at a level where I can adjust quickly and not lose out on my resources, not wasting time and not wasting energy in exchanges and interactions. I can adjust immediately. And it might not be pleasant and it might not feel good and all these other things, but it helps me move in an adequate and efficient way because I have a yes and a no. And that's me applying the default principle to my life. I'm applying the default principle to my life. Another thing we talked about was donations, right? We talked about how our nonprofit, we go to all of these different banks and we put in the application. I said, I'd rather you tell me that I didn't get the job or I didn't get the donation or I didn't get the sponsorship than you to sit on my application. And then, my wife was like, well, you gotta operate like that it's a yes. I said, actually, not necessarily. We can't operate like that because we haven't gotten a commitment. And I say, we go to all the banks. Right? We go to all the banks and we fill out information for all the banks. We go to all the organizations. We reach out to all of them. And when I get a yes, if something comes after that, I'm gonna say, hey, listen, I already got a commitment. I already got a contract. I'm already engaged. I'm already in a relationship. These things, like that's why we find ourselves losing out because we're waiting on a yes when they haven't communicated a yes. And because they haven't communicated a yes and we're waiting on a yes, we're sitting ducks, like literally sitting there, ducking, like just waiting for something to happen. And then we're going to have to be reactionary, right? Because if we're waiting on a yes and it turns out to be a no, we've lost all of that time. And now we have to go resettle our emotions and feelings concerning the time we spent, concerning the efforts we put in, and then go out and do it again. And at that point, we might be discouraged, right? But if I go in and I do this and I execute and I continue to work, and everything is a no until I get a yes, right? Everything is a no until I get a yes. I'm not saying that you pessimistic. I'm telling you that you have to engage. If you ask the yes or no question, if you say, hey, can I have this? And they don't say yes, then you have to consider it as a no. You got to operate like it's a no so you can continue to be effective. Because if you continue to sit and wait for resources to show up or someone to fulfill a commitment that they did not commit to, you're going to find yourself at a loss, right? The default principle is a benefit to you. It helps you maintain your consistency. It helps you continue to move forward, and all the friction and in the stagnation, those things are dispelled because you're accepting that, hey, look, I did not get a yes. And if I did not get a yes, I can't literally set this to the side for this individual to operate or fulfill. Like this space is supposed to be fulfilled by commitment. And if this individual that I asked a yes or no question did not say yes, then by default, this is not filled. And I have to find someone else to fill this, right? And I'm not telling you not to be persistent. You can go ask the same person over and over and over again. I'm not telling you not to be persistent. I'm telling you to continue to move and function. This default method is very effective and it's supported across every field, industry, and profession. It's supported. Like you got to continue to move and function at a high level, and you can't make the proper adjustments if you're waiting on a yes, and there's other opportunities out there. It's just kind of oblivious for us to sit here and wait on a yes after we asked the question, and they had the opportunity to say yes. That's why I like this. I like this definition. The definition says failure to fulfill an obligation by default. Like, see, I don't like the word failure. I don't really dive into failure because one thing is failure is an end result, right? Like if I give up, that's the only way I fail. Like if I say, man, I'm done, I failed, right? I don't want to fail. I got to keep moving. I got to keep functioning. I got to keep operating. And so, but the obligation piece here, not fulfilling an obligation, that's a big piece. And so I I have to also hold myself in account to the default principle. I got to give people yeses and nos. I got to be clear and concise. You give me a yes and no question, I'm gonna give you a yes and I'm gonna give you a no, and I'm gonna do it without an explanation unless you want an explanation, right? So I'm gonna give you the yes, I'm gonna give you the no, so you can move, so you can operate, so you can adjust, so you can continue to know exactly. You can calibrate properly, right? You can say, okay, I don't have a commitment here. I need to find another resource. If I can't fulfill it, I'm gonna just say no, right? Stop saying yes to stuff. How many people have we injured because we said yes and did not fulfill that obligation, right? What I mean, I'm just saying, like, how many people did we injure by saying yes and did not fulfill that obligation because we had some of these things that I'm gonna read in our hearts, right? We had these it's crazy, right? We ran away basically from a clear, concise answer. We ran away from being honest and truthful, integrity. We ran away from it. It's the word is called Levant. You ran away. You fled away from it. See, so when we do not answer this is yes or no questions, when we do not answer, we virtually run away from our obligation. You are obligated to answer yes or no, especially if you understand this principle, because we know how beneficial it not only is to us, but to the individuals that we say yes or no to. And it says your response and answer is due. It's due. And how many of us know, like, man, most of the time when somebody asks us a yes or no question, we know. We know. Like, we know whether or not we want to do something. Sometimes we try to have our answer as a consideration, and consideration isn't the yes or no. The yes or no is the yes or no. Whatever we do based on consideration isn't our answer. Our yes or no, our yes and no is our answer. So if I say no right now and then I consider the situation and then say, you know what, I'll do it, that's fine. But give an answer, like the answer is due when somebody asks the question. If we leave it out there in the air and it's just floating around and somebody like, oh, yes or no, like, hey, can I get a yes or no? And we don't leave it with that, I have to interpret that on my own. And if I interpret that on my own and start conducting myself in a certain way, it might be offensive to you. And now you mad at me. And I say, well, you didn't say this. And then you'll be like, I never said no, but you never said yes. But you never said yes. And if I get the yes, then I can operate appropriately. If I get the no, I can operate appropriately. But because I didn't get the answer when it was due, now I'm functioning in a way, and you're upset with the balance that we got now. You know what I'm saying? That this is very important. I think the default principle is something that everybody needs to start implementing, because it's going to help us be clear, concise. It's going to help us be kind and courteous to the individuals in front of us and to ourselves, because now we'll be able to operate efficiently and effective, and we'll know exactly what our next move need to be versus waiting for somebody to give us an answer for our next move. I'm not going to wait on a yes. I'm going to continue to work until I see the yes, right? And if I don't get a yes, I'm going to operate as if I got a no. I'm going to have to, because if I don't operate as if I got a no, I'm going to think that I have a support that's not even present. I'm going to think that I have a commitment that's not even made. And I'm going to be moving flagrantly, right? And we don't want to do that. So reading on, right, it says, if we all be honest with ourselves, there have been many occasions where we have not answered questions because of the implications of what may transpire behind our answer. Like, you can't allow yourself not to say yes or not to say no based on the implications behind your answer. You have to be clear, you have to be concise, you got to be honest, you got to have this integrity about you that's going to help you move forward and help them move forward. Because at some point we're going to leave this conversation, and this person that don't have an answer is going to be in a headspace and not know where to go. But you based on your answer, their actions are predicated based on your answer. And if you don't give an answer, then what kind of actions are they going to take? You might be the reason why somebody's been stagnant for 10 years. That's something to think about, because I didn't give a yes or no question, right? I didn't give an answer to the yes or no question. And then let's read on. It says also, you didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings, right? How many times do we care so much about somebody's feelings that we fail to give them information that they need to make the best decision for their lives. Like the default principle, I promise you, the default principle is something that we need to utilize. And then on top of that, it says you don't want to get in trouble, right? Because sometimes our yes is an admission of a guilt, right? Right? You don't want to get in trouble, or you don't want to get in the middle of or involved in something that's not necessarily your problem. Somebody asking you a question, yes or no question, that you got the information to and you're not necessarily a part of, right? Like the answers do, man. Like there's an obligation. Like this is a principle that works, and it helps individuals be successful in their dreams, their goals, and their aspirations. It helps them move to those dreams, goals, and aspirations to see them come into fruition. The issue is we have literally said, hey, my feelings are much more important than your success. My feelings are much more important than your growth. Even for our own selves, our feelings are much more important than our success, than our growth, that we can't give a proper answer. It's important to give these proper answers, right? So the thing is here is that, you know, a lot of people still normally be on the edge about whether the default principle is something that we operate by. But I tell people this, look, check out this second definition that I have. This next definition says a pre-selected option, right? Adopted by a computer program or other mechanism, i.e. your brain and heart, right? When no alternative is specified by the user or the programmer. So I got the question and I don't get an answer, there's no specification, then I'm going to default right back to where I started. I came in with a no. When we was talking about the man asking the woman, will you marry me? And she didn't give an answer. I defaulted. I came without a yes. I left without a yes. It was already pre-selected. That's what I had when I showed up. That's what I had when I left. And then I operate accordingly. This is the default principle. The default principle. And let's get a little bit biblical, right? The Bible, we talked about this. The Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no's be no, right? That's the most valiant way to operate, I believe. And I think it's important for us to understand that. But think about this. This is what God said, right? God said, he said, I'd rather you be hot or cold, your yes or no, than be lukewarm. Because if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. That's the default. Like, don't straddle the fence with me, and don't just be like, I don't know with me. Give me the yes or no. If it's a yes or no question, there are some answers that we have to think about, right? But give me the yes or no answer. Let's do it in the moment. Hey, give it to me in the moment. Let me know exactly what I need to do, or give me a time window in which you can give me an answer so I can understand how I need to conduct myself. Right? Because look, if you're lukewarm and you don't know, then I got to take it as if it's a no. I got to take it as if you're not committed to me. I got to take it as if you didn't commit to the agreement. I got to take it if you didn't commit to the contract. I got to take it as if you didn't commit to the sponsorship. I got to take it as if you didn't commit to the donation. I got to take it as if you didn't commit to the speaking engagement. I got to take it as a no, and I got to make sure I have somebody in place or something in place to make sure that whatever I have going on is effective and make the impact that I desire for it to make. So this default principle, like, it's substantiated across different forums. Like if you, and it's a universal principle. Like your yes and your no's, like, it's universal. So if I say yes, I committed to something. It's a contract. I'm in contract now. I committed to this thing. I mean, and there's an obligation that I have because of my yes, right? But if I say no, right? If I say no, then I say, hey, listen, I'm not going to commit to this. This is not my obligation. I'm not going to be in this contract. And the person on the other side now understands how they need to operate and what they need to pursue, right? But if I don't answer, like, think about having a contract sent to you for a renewal of your lease, and they say, hey, it's ready for you to sign, right? And signing that dotted line is your commitment, is saying yes, and you never sign. And then by the time your current lease is up, and you think like, hey, listen, I had another lease, y'all sent it to me, but you never committed. And by default, they went and proceeded with the regular process. They went back to how it was, as if that contract was never present, right? They defaulted to the option that was already pre-programmed. right? It's important for us to understand that. And that's how we got to operate, because if we're talking about maintaining our effectiveness, if we're talking about helping others be successful, if we're talking about that, we got to make sure we understand the default principle, right? If I say yes, I'm under contract, right? If I say nothing, that's a no. And if I say no, that's a no, right? And we got to understand that. And I'm telling you this for you, not necessarily for anybody outside of you. The people outside of you will benefit from you operating like this. Some people might not understand it or accept it, but it's going to be so effective, and it's going to change the way you conduct yourself with others, and it's going to make you very efficient in what you're doing, and you're going to see a lot of friction stop. Like it's going to be removed. You're going to see stagnation stop, procrastination stop, because you're not waiting on an answer, right? And they're not waiting on answers. You're giving them answers, and they're definitive answers, and it's helping them move forward with their dreams, their goals, and their aspirations. I'm telling you, this book right here, again, is changing lives across the United States, around the world. It's an internationally sold book, and I know that if you purchase this book, you get the information that's inside of it. It's going to take you to the next level. Look, if you want to see your dreams, your goals, and your aspirations face to face, this is what you need. And the link is in the description. Hey, look, I hope you continue to unload, unpack, unlock, and unveil every attribute and ability that you possess for success. And guess what? I'll see you at the top.